historical status of Tibet as an independent state has not been pushed to the level that we would have liked to. That they cannot just change history. History is in the past. The second is a message to the international community that without understanding Tibet's history, how can they parrot what the Chinese government wants them to say? There is a lot of discrepancy and holes in China's logic towards history. Tibet and India, we have age-old relations. We consider ourselves as an extension of Indian culture. This is part of the strategy that we adopted since we came into this job from May 2021. The first time I managed to travel to the United States was April 2022 because the pandemic was going on. And at that time, we did inform our friends in the Congress, particularly Speaker Pelosi at that time, that this is our change in strategy, that we need to focus on the extremes. When we talk about middle way, then there has to be extremes. Without extremes, there cannot be middle way. And if you have no recognition for the extremes, then there is no value for middle way. So extreme could be many dimensions. It could be political, social, economic, educational, whatever. But in this case, the political extremes are one extreme is the present situation of Tibet, occupied Tibet under the repressive communist government, which we keep talking about to other governments all the time, whether it's the Central Tibetan Administration or non-governmental organizations, whoever is advocating for Tibet. But the other extreme, which is the historical status of Tibet as an independent state, has not been pushed to the level that we would have liked to. So I say we have 4 reasons for doing this. One is to send a message to China that they cannot just change history. History is in the past, and it's best left to historians. And the second is a message to the international community that without understanding Tibet's history, how can they parrot what the Chinese government wants them to say over the last 60, 65 years? And that is why every country that has connection with Tibet keeps repeating the statement that Tibet is part of PRC. On the other hand, they keep telling the international community that Tibet has been part of China since ancient times. Now, when is ancient times? 7th century, 13th century, 18th century, or before that? Now, day before yesterday, one Chinese expert said, oh, from the Qin time to the Han time, and those are BCs, early ADs, where there was no connection between Tibetans and Chinese. 7th century, they are not able to prove it. Tibet was at its peak in its empire. The Tibetan Empire extended from Xiangyang, or Xiang today, to present-day Uzbekistan. And the Tibetan king had the power to call for alliance from both Nepal and China, their princesses as consorts. And then 13th century, we established relations with the Mongols much before China was invaded by the Mongols, Kublai Khan. We had established this, Sagyapas have established relations with the Mongols. And now Chinese claim that Tibet became part of China in 13th century, saying it's 1247. Whereas 1247, we established relation with Kublai Khan's father, and Kublai invaded China in 1271, and that is the period in Chinese history what they call as Yuan dynasty from 1271 to 1368. So there is a lot of discrepancy and holes in China's logic towards history, and they have been shifting the goalposts all the time, and much of the Sino-Tibet conflict or dispute is seen from the prism of human rights by the international community. Is there human rights violation on Tibet, whether it's in terms of political space or whether it's in terms of religious freedom or language or way of life or protection of Tibet's environment or minority rights, indigenous rights. These are components of the whole of the issue on Tibet, which is an issue that's related to its people and its history. So this Tibet Resolve Act focuses on one part, the countering China's disinformation on Tibetan history, its people, and His Holiness the Dalai Lama. So that, in that sense, the contents of those laws, the first issue is that it's an unresolved conflict, because China thinks Tibet is already resolved, that they have managed to convince the world that Tibet is part of PRC, and that is being challenged for the first time. They keep saying there is not one single country who recognizes the independence of Tibet. The law, it does not say we recognize independence, but it challenges China's narratives that they have not accepted that Tibet is part of China since ancient times. So these combined, the Tibetan people's right to self-determination and all that, and defining Tibetan territory in the fourth part of this bill, these are all acting against China's narrative, and which is a new tool in our hand. And now with this new tool, how do we work with other governments around the world? That is why it's important.
Will you be engaging with other countries to bring the similar law?
Definitely, definitely. Now we would expect the United States to lend a shoulder to work with like-minded countries, because that is something that the United States have always been talking, and we can reach out only to the free world, not countries that has alliance or whose authorities are quite similar to what China is. So we can't reach to those countries, but we can reach out to the free world and see who would be willing to adopt similar positions.
What do you think will be India's position in this?
I think a lot of analysis has been done during the congressional visit to Dharamsala, where a lot of credit is given to the Indian government for allowing them to visit India, visit Dharamsala, make those statements, and they're on their way back met with Prime Minister Modi ji and also our foreign minister. So I think in Taiwan also it's being interpreted as validation of this visit to Dharamsala by the Indian government. So Indian governments also keeps this interest in mind. I have always said that no country will leave aside their national interest and pick up Tibetan national interest. So as long as that nation's security interests and other interests aligns with Tibetan interests, and Tibet and India, we have age-old relations. We consider ourselves as an extension of Indian culture, our language, our religion, the script of our language and religion all came from India. We consider ourselves as an extension of Indian culture because we transliterated every available Sanskrit and Pali text into Tibetan, and we are the only country to do that. So we are a repository of one part of ancient Indian wisdom, and we are very grateful to the Indian government at the most difficult period of our history to give refuge here in India to His Holiness, and now there are about 72,000 Indian Tibetans in India. So, but I'm in no position, I have always said, I'm in no position to advise the Indian government. There are a lot of brainy people in the government, and they know exactly what to do. And as long as they feel that Tibet's interest aligns with India's interest, then I'm sure, and since about a year ago, there have been a lot of noises, not just 1 year, because of China's belligerence on Indian border, and there are a lot more noises or voices about India having to recalibrate its Tibet's policy.
Lastly, sir, if I may talk about Dalai Lama, how's his health, and when is he expected to be back in Dharamshala?
The dates are not fixed because it will all depend on how well His Holiness recovers and what other engagements might appear. So right now, it's the date is not fixed. I'm leaving tonight to the United States to thank all the Congress men and women who supported this, particularly the leaders who supported this, and then I will also meet with some of the community members whom I have promised to visit 2 times in 5 years, and then I will have an audience with His Holiness by month end of this, and then we'll be able to evaluate the actual situation.